Hello and welcome to the Ray Show podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Ray, and as always, we are recording from beautiful downtown Athens, Georgia. So good to have you all with us here in the month of July. You know, it is July is really creeping in down here in the deep south. So we hope everybody's staying cool out there and, maybe listening to podcasts like this one. And tonight we've got a hell of a show for you. We have got Mr. Brian Baker from Bad Religion, Minor Threat, Dag Nasty, Fake Names, and so many more on the podcast. So we got a super fun chat with Mr. Baker, who we caught up with him at the Atlanta stop of the Bad Religion Social Distortion Tour that took place in the spring. And as you're listening to this, Bad Religion are blazing through Europe with a fall tour on the way that was just announced. And it was so cool to meet Brian and Jay Bentley and Dr. Greg Graffin, and just to let these gentlemen know how many manacles of the mind their music and art had helped me break over the years. I mean, it's always great when your heroes are even cooler than you imagine them. And those guys are definitely that. I want to thank Christina, who works with Bad Religion, for setting this up, and their tour manager, Rick, who was such a cool dude and took such good care of us. And their entire organization just seems to be doing it right, man, and just great people. But before we get to the interview, I want to send all the love, support, and strength we can to Dennis from Refused and Fake Names, and many, many more, who is recuperating from a recent heart attack. And there's so few real deal rock and rollers left, and we need Dennis now more than ever. So send all your love and strength to him. Put on Refused Party Program or Caught in Between from the Fake Names record and just blast it, and just send him your love. But we hope to speak with him one day here on the Ratio podcast, and we just want to send all the healing vibes and all that we can to Mr. Dennis. And we want to let you know that our friends in She He He are releasing a new album called Love Wins on August 23rd, and you can stream the single right now, Love Wins, and check out their new video for Get On My Lawn, directed by the Ratio Podcast's own Eric George, and featuring a cameo from yours truly and other Athens ne'er-do-wells. So we love and support She He He, so check it out and make sure to be on the lookout for that record coming to you on August 23rd. Also, for our UK listeners, our friends in the March Violets will be kicking off their UK tour later this month. So go check out their dates on their socials and their website. Also, our friends in Vision Video have announced some fall dates. So be sure to check those out and see if they are coming to your area. I know they've got some really cool opening gigs on that tour. So make sure to check that out. We also want to thank Mr. Brant Duncan for all the work he does here, editing the podcast. Man, we love you and appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for all you do. If you need a project edited or mastered or mixed, get in touch with us here at the Ratio Podcast, and we'll put you in touch with Brant. But getting to our talk tonight, I was so excited to meet this man, and what a fun time we had. I grew up listening to Minor Threat, Dag Nasty, and also Bad Religion, which he joined later on. But we talk about all that, and, I often heard that when Cliff Burton of Metallica would hear the Misfits, he loved them so much that he would just about lose his mind with joy. And that's how I feel about Bad Religion. I mean, I can switch on any of their records, and it takes me back to that year in my life, that time, and just good memories, it seems like. And, I think Dr. Greg Graffin has a real way with his words, and he's really been empowering with his knowledge, and his, I think, very, very, rational view of the world, and I think we've been the benefit for all of that knowledge. And the band, and speaking of Mr. Baker, himself, just couldn't be more rock and roll, more punk rock, more amazing. And it was such a pleasure to talk to Brian. And without further ado, here we go, Brian Baker. All right, Johnny Ray with the Ray Show podcast, and we are here at the Coca-Cola Roxy where Bad Religion is playing tonight. And we are fortunate enough to be sitting here with one of my absolute musical heroes and a super nice guy, Mr. Brian Baker of Bad Religion, Dag Nasty, Minor Threat, Fake Names, The Rolling Stones, U2.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough finding time to talk to you because I'm on so many different stages.
Right
on. Somehow my wife and I make it work.
Right. Between the jets and all that.
Well, we live in New Zealand. We found it's a central location.
There you go. Well, you're currently on the most successful tour Bad Religion has undertaken. I mean, you played your biggest headline show to date the other night. This usually doesn't happen to bands 44 years in their career. How's it going out there?
I think it's called late career bump or something.
Yeah.
It's going great. I mean, I'm so grateful and pleased that people are still excited about what we're doing, and I think I just blame it on us doing a lot of touring and trying to still make records that have some relevance to people. It's, there's a line between a heritage act and a working band, and I'm sure it's completely accidental, but we've managed to kind of stumble into this zone where we're getting people are still interested, and they like the new stuff, they like the old stuff, and they're bringing their children and they're telling their friends. So how great is that?
It's amazing. And like you mentioned, you guys have put out, you've had so many records in the last decade that I think people are just now getting, really checking out, and digesting. And it's so good to see so many of these songs in the set.
Yeah.
Because you're playing, I know you're playing songs off of True Noise. Is there some?
Well, yeah, we've tried to. The set list has got stuff pretty much from everything. I mean, when we have, especially a show like this co-headlining with our friend Social Distortion, where we're on now, we're only playing for about an hour 10, an hour 15, and that puts us at about, 26 songs, 25 songs, and of those, there's 10 we have to play, because you have to play them. And I love playing the songs that everybody loves best. So the other 15, 10, whatever we've got to do, we try to switch them up and represent different albums from the entire catalog. It's fun for us because we don't know what we're going to play every night. It's fun for people who come to more than one show. But also it's, with this great body of work, you have to do the due diligence and make sure you're representing stuff from everything.
Right. And let's get off. Before we get off the tour, what's your first? What do you remember being your first interaction with Social Distortion?
Well, my first interaction with Social Distortion was when their bus broke down in front of Discord House in 1982, I believe, which you can see that and more in a film called Another State of Mind. And that's one of the great American punk rock movies that was made. It was basically following Social Distortion and Youth Brigade on an ill-fated tour across the U.S. from Los Angeles to the East Coast. And the tour ended when their vehicle ended, which happened to be in my hometown, right across from Discord House, where guys from Minor Threat lived and where we rehearsed. And so that's the first time I met Mike Ness. And yet here we are now, 42 years later, and we're having the same conversation. We like guitars and old stuff and dogs. He's awesome.
Right on. Well, going back to the Minor Threat days, how does it feel to be part of something that means so much, just to start out of the gate with that?
Well, it's insane and great. I'm so grateful and astonished because this was an after-school band that kids who went to school, we'd go to someone's mom's house and rehearse. And I was 15 when the band started. I mean, no one thought that it was never built to be anything significant. It's really kind of a happy accident, and I think it also helps that we broke up before we made any bad records, and we never got back together. So the mystery is still there. And
Right.
of course, we're never going to get back together because we're no longer Minors, which was key to the Minor Threat thing. It's like that was the, it's right there in the name. No reunion tours. And I think we're just very, very lucky, and it was just a product of that time and that place, and that our small scene in DC, and it was just it's just lucky that it was documented.
Yeah.
And that we managed to make a couple of records that we made ourselves. Again, not with the intent of it having any sort of, later significance. It's just what you did. Let's make a record. That's
Something so startling to me was going back and really digging through these songs. These were the first hardcore punk songs I ever heard. And when you get back to it, it's all riffs and it was shocking how over the years I went back and saw just the simplicity of what y'all were doing makes it just so timeless,
And that was, the simplicity was a product of not there was no guidelines. Like, we weren't making, it just happened. I think the simplicity is just part of the situation. That was the level we were at. I mean, the music we were making, we were influenced by other bands that we liked, who all were, a lot of early pop bands were not the most complicated thing in the world, but just some reason this one it's still, to me, listening to it, it still sounds interesting and fresh.
It does.
And God knows why.
Sounds like it's recorded 10 years from now or something. It has that vibe. And, when you go from Minor Threat to Dag Nasty, and there's so many other projects you've been involved with, one thing that really interests me is when I was like 14, I had a promo copy of the self-titled Junkyard album.
Yeah.
What was that whole experience, and what was LA like at that time? I know you moved out there to...
Yeah, I moved out there with Dag Nasty because we wanted to live... the bass player at the time lived in LA, and I was tired of DC, and I was living in a group house with 7 other people, and who didn't want to when they were 21 to just move to Hollywood. We moved to the beach, actually, initially to Hermosa Beach. It just seemed like a good idea. And Dag Nasty had gotten to the point where we were a touring act, so where we started a tour didn't really matter. I mean, if we could play shows in California on the West Coast just the same as East Coast shows, and so it just was like, let's see what's out there.
Yeah.
And it was it was fantastic. It was an incredible experience, and I just Dag Nasty kind of ran its course, and at the same time I ran into some people who were doing this Junkyard band who I'd known from punk rock, because it was my friend Chris who was in the Big Boys, who we played with. Minor Threat played with the Big Boys in DC and in Texas, and it was just this I just walked into a 7-Eleven to buy some beer, and there was this opportunity, and it happened. And he was like, well, we need a guitar player, we're making a record on Geffen. And I'm like, I play guitar. He's like, I know you do, why don't you come try out? And I went, and there wasn't a tryout, I just went and played, and they said, okay. And that was just one of the numerous times I've just been in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
It was certainly not the skill set, it was just like, I don't know, it just happened. And it turned out to be the most valuable learning experience of my life. It was my first time on a major label. It was my first time in a tour bus. It was my first time learning about the music business, the good part, the bad part. I learned about publishing. I learned about songwriting. I learned about everything. And I wouldn't change a thing. It was a incredibly great experience.
Right. And you still play with them?
I do.
When you can.
When
right?
I can. They don't play as much as they used to. I contribute to the writing of every record. They've made a number of records in the last 3 or 4 years, and I do what I can. These guys are still great friends, and the band's still awesome. Like, if you get a chance, you need to go see Junkyard. It's great.
Absolutely.
I mean, Roach sings, and it's a cool band.
Yeah. Those songs stay with me, like Hands Off, and well, a couple. One thing we were talking about earlier, and I'm just flummoxed by this record, the Last Fake Names record.
Yeah.
Both of them, I would recommend to people. Just amazing hooks, just good rock and roll. How did you get hooked up with Dennis? I mean, it's a super group, but Dennis
Was friends with our bass player Johnny Temple, And I had met Dennis just out in the wild because he was in Refused and he was in International Noise Conspiracy. These were Epitaph bands, and I'm on Epitaph at this point. And you just kind of in the world, in the sort of the festival circuit world internationally, you kind of just know everybody. It's weird. It's like I don't think about being friends with like some dude in Korn, but in catering, oh fuck, what's up, dude? It's very weird how it works like that. So I kind of knew Dennis, and we, Michael Hampton, who I grew up with, who was in a number of seminal DC bands like Embrace and SOA. We'd wanted to write together, and we had written a bunch of songs, and Johnny kind of came into the fold. Johnny also, we went to the same high school, and Johnny had been in other DC bands that were contemporaries of the ones of Dag Nasty and Embrace, and we just kind of were putting this project together, and eventually we had written enough songs where we found a guy, a good friend who played drums with us, and it was like, well, we should get a singer. And it just, like everything, it was just, we looked for a singer. We asked our friend Ted Leo, who's a fantastic artist, and Ted was into it, but he was kind of busy. And then Craig Fenn from Hold Steady was like, oh, I kind of would do it, but I'm really busy. And it was all a project. No one's thinking about building an empire. Like, it's just something we're doing. We're fucking around. And Dennis's name came up, and Johnny and I ran into Dennis we were playing Riot Fest in different bands, and it was basically like, oh, whoa, look, hey, there's Dennis, maybe he wants to sing. And Dennis was like, yeah, send me a tape. And that was that simple. We just physically ran, like, oh, what's up, Dennis? Hey. And then he said he wanted to give it a shot, and he came and he sang on some stuff and sent us demos, and it was great. Like, okay, now we have a singer. And I was like, okay, well, we should find someone to put out the record. Maybe I'll call Brett. I mean, honestly, that was how it was. Is Brett at Epitaph was like, hey, this is great. Yeah, I'll put the record out. It was that, just no planning, no nothing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's, and are we going to get another record?
Yeah, we're writing one right now. We've
right
got
on.
about 10 songs.
Cool.
Yeah.
And some shows maybe one day?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, we're doing this when we can. When we can slot it in. I mean, Johnny runs a publishing company, which is alone a pretty big feat, and he's touring with his band Soulside, and Dennis has some Refused dates this year. I have a pretty big Bad Religion schedule. We're tentatively, Fake Names are going to do a couple of weeks in Europe in the late fall. We're booking that right now. But yeah, we're gonna. I mean, this is it's a hangout for us. It's a fun project.
It comes through in the songs. There's just joy in it.
Yeah, it's great, and the shows are fun too. So we're gonna do as much as we can when we have the time. I mean, that's it.
Right. Well, you've been so good to us. Just got a couple more for you.
Sure.
Your guitar collection is, dare I say, achingly tasteful. What do you have a favorite that you like to play?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't really have a favorite because it changes all the time. What my favorite one is today. My favorite one is a white, made-to-measure Murphy Lab chambered Les Paul Custom I bought maybe a year ago that I just thought looked cool, and I didn't have a white custom at the time, and I bought it, and it was like, oh fuck, well, it's chambered, it doesn't sound good, but it's so cool looking, but I don't really know if I like. Anyway, it's like been out on tour, then it's been at home, then it was out on tour, then I put a different pickup in it. Then yesterday I played it for the first time on this tour, and we're already over three quarters of the way done with this tour. I just played it yesterday because it was I was honestly like, is it on the truck? Because it wasn't in the daily rotation, and I played it for half the show last night, and I was like, oh wow, look at that. So I'm going to play it today.
Nice.
That's just it, but who knows? I don't know why it sounds good today and yesterday, but it didn't sound good 3 weeks ago. It just changes.
There's a gold SG you have.
That's gone.
That's gone?
Gold SG I sold. It didn't quite do it.
Really?
Well, it had a Bigsby on it.
Okay.
It had a B5 Bigsby on it, and it just never really, I got it. I bought that guitar because I moved to Asbury Park, and the music store the Asbury Park Music Store had it, and I was like, I'm moving here, and I'm gonna walk into my local brick and mortar, and I'm gonna establish a relationship with these people, and look at that, I'm gonna buy that guitar, and I'm gonna help them out, and and I was like, I always wanted a gold SG, and I kept it for a couple of years, but it just didn't quite, just wasn't great.
Oh wow, yeah.
You gotta sell. You have to be willing to sell them, and that's the thing. Is I'm not trying to I move, I buy and sell, and now it's really more selling than buying because everything's too expensive, and I don't have too many guitars.
Right. You never have too many guitars.
You can have too many guitars.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Well, me and you share that we're both huge AC/DC fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're a Power Age guy, which I was for years.
Yeah.
And I really feel like Let There Be Rock has moved forward just on the strength of Overdose alone, just it being such a badass
At
deep
this
track.
point, Dirty Deeds and Powerage and Let Them Be, I mean, it's all the same.
It all is, yeah.
You can't really pick and choose. It's about what flavor ice cream you want. I mean, it's just, it just gets better and better to me.
Yeah.
The deeper the dives. And there's something about that era and just the way those brothers play. It's just, I mean, I have no problem with Flick of the Switch, mind you.
Yeah.
Like, I am an AC/DC fan.
Me too, yeah.
And there's greatness everywhere, but there's just something about the naivete of those early Bandit and Young produced records that you just can't touch anymore.
Right.
It's like the first 3 ZZ Top records. It's just an intangible greatness that is you can't top.
You can't. When are we going to see a Bad Religion AC/DC run?
As soon as humanly possible. When I was in Junkyard, we changed management and hired AC/DC's manager only so that we could get on an AC/DC tour. And we still didn't get the AC/DC.
Jesus.
Yeah, so we fired him.
Now, did you ever see, you're obviously, you're too young to have seen him with Bon Scott. Have you seen him a lot over the years?
I saw Back in Black, so that was pretty as close as I could get.
Yeah,
And I saw whatever was being. I saw Thunderstruck era.
Yeah.
I went to a show then. I think I've seen him 3 times. Obviously Brian Johnson.
Right.
I can't remember the last time it was, how recent it was.
Right on. Well, Brian, I just want to thank you for being on today and all the good music over the years. And it just looks like you're just getting going, man.
Well, I appreciate that. Sometimes it feels like I'm not quite getting going as quickly as I used to, but it's just a privilege to be out here. And I keep grateful is the word I use a lot because it's really meaningful.
Yeah.
I am so taken aback and baffled by this whole journey, and I'm so lucky that, just so grateful to be here.
Right on, man. Well, thank you so much for your time and rock it out tonight.
I'll do my best, man. Great.
I want to thank Brian Baker for coming on the Ratio podcast and talking to us all about Bad Religion and his amazing musical history. So be on the lookout for them on tour in the fall. And like I said, I saw them in the spring, and you can't choose a better night out. So big thanks to all those guys for doing what they do. And that's about all for us from the Ratio podcast tonight. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and you can also check out all things Ratio Podcast at www.ratiopodcast.com. And as always, we appreciate your support. And if you're a new listener, welcome to the fold. And stay switched on, and we'll talk to you soon.